Hi, I'm Mark Watson, pastor of Faith Bible Church here in New Plymouth. Today is Tuesday, April the 21st, 2020, and you may have heard yesterday that the government had announced that we are moving out of level 4 lockdown this time next week and into level 3 for 2 weeks. And for many of you, this doesn't change your situation at all. We still can't meet together as a church, for example. There's still a lot of things you cannot do under level 3. And so this may be causing you a lot of frustration. You may be feeling very negative about the situation. You may be feeling very anxious about what is going to happen, especially if you are desperate to get back to work, if you're desperate to get out and about, but you can't as yet. If this is you, I want to remind you from Philippians chapter 4, verse 5, that the Apostle Paul writes, saying, "Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say, rejoice." Now that's the Apostle Paul, and he's writing from prison as he writes this to the church at Philippi, encouraging them to rejoice in the Lord always. Now you may be thinking, well, how can I possibly take rejoice in my situation? I'm feeling negative, I'm suffering financially because I can't work, or my business is suffering financially. How can I possibly rejoice? Well, first of all, I want you to know that it is possible to rejoice even though there are other competing emotions happening. For example, the Apostle Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 6 that while he was sorrowful, yet he was always rejoicing. And he reminds the church at Corinth of the Macedonians from 2 Corinthians chapter 8 that while they suffered a great ordeal of affliction, they still had this abundant joy which overflowed in their generosity. And so it is possible to be joyful while you still have these competing emotions going on. But I think here's the trick. I think there's three things that you must remember to do. First is that you must choose to rejoice. That's right, you must choose to rejoice. Joyfulness is not just a feeling. It's not just this reaction to something wonderful, but it's also an action. You must choose to be joyful. You must choose to rejoice. Secondly, you want to make sure that your joyfulness outweighs any other competing emotions. You want to make sure that your joyfulness is always greater than your frustration, greater than your grumbling, greater than any of the negativity that you may feel happening. Your joyfulness must be greater than those other competing emotions. And third, you must rejoice in the Lord, because in Him you will find true joy and true peace. I've said this over and over again over the last few weeks, but it is only in Christ where you find true joy. But rejoice in Him. Think of His attributes. Think of His perfections, His graciousness, His kindness, His goodness, His faithfulness, His love. All of those things are just a joy to behold when you consider who He is. And when you think and dwell and meditate upon His attributes, that just causes you to rejoice. And even more so when you consider the gospel, that the fact that in His love He sent His Son to die a horrible death so that you may have life in Him. When you think of His faithfulness, that He helps you to persevere through even the most difficult times, this is a great reason to rejoice. So rejoice in the Lord and never forget to rejoice in Him. I'll see you again tomorrow.